Welcome to the Mad Love Your Life show. I'm Mary D, the Joy Catalyst, here to be your host and transformation guide. Mad Love is about the mad, making a difference, and love is what we serve up to live a delicious life. My intention is to help you spark new ideas, break limiting beliefs, and align with your deepest dreams and desires. Get ready for laughter, inspiration, and finding your inner roar in every show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. I'm so excited to be here live with you on this post-election day Wednesday. Wow, wow, wow. Can I just say that I am so glad that all of the election stuff is basically a wrap. I can't wait to not have to see a commercial a slur, all the things. So with that, I will say that I want to acknowledge that feelings might feel heavy for some today, and for others, you might be out celebrating. No matter where you are in that spectrum, just remember, hey, it's 4 years and things will change again. And all of us can collectively, if we can all collectively come together, we can do really great things, no matter what side of the fence you're on. So be kind to each other out there, be kind to yourself. And with that, I am excited to announce my guest today. She is incredible, number one. Her name is Estefania, and Estefania graduated with a BA in Ethnohistory by the National School of Anthropology and History in Mexico City. She also started her film career in 2016 as POC in Transformers 5, the QB unit, and MGM's Everything Mexico unit in collaboration with the production houses Art in Motion and Ithaca Films. She's been involved in the production of projects like No Man's Land, Al Límite de la Venganza by Connor Allen, the Netflix / Storyhouse series Tijuana, Totem, and Almost Paradise by Edgar San Juan. She also has way more film credentials than, and if you want them, find them on IMDb, because if I read them all, it is going to start sounding like we're making our movie club watch list for 2025. That's how many accolades are on here, y'all. Nowadays, Estefania is co-CEO of the production house Blue Guitar, where she became lead producer for the podcast, The Red Note, presented by Lydia Cacho, which was nominated, by the way, for Best Podcast in Spanish in the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards in 2021. So with that, Estefania, thank you for coming on the show today. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm just beaming with excitement to have you here today joining us. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask you the first question that we ask every guest on the show, which is, what do you know now that you wish you had known before you ever got started in film?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be having this conversation and meeting all of you. What would like to know when I was starting film? First of all, I think that one of the things that I'm still working on it's a lot of patience, a lot of empathy, having a lot of I don't know, trying to always get surprised by life in every single thing that it shows you, and never lost that capability of wonder every time that you are going around looking at life, and always understand that making film as community, as life, it's all about having your own community and having your own team. So always be a teammate, always be somebody who take care of the people that are helping you, because you'll have also that help from them for you. So maybe those are my lessons, the things that I've learned
Yeah,
throughout all this journey in the
I love that.
film, in the
Yes.
film
Yes, I
industry.
love that. Yeah, what I hear you saying is obviously community, right? In community, we take care of each other, whether that's in work or whether that is in our homes, whether it's with
Yeah.
our friendship circles. And I love that. I think that's really important. And that's what community is about. It is literally about a, hey, when do you need your back scratched? Because I'll do that for you. And then when I need my back scratched, I'm going to come ask you for that too. And how can we make sure that as a team, we all work together?
Mhm.
Many of you have heard me talk about relationships and how it's so much easier when you both go at it as a team instead of as opponents, because that's what so many people are doing out in the world. And Estefania, tell me about, tell me a little bit about life before film production, because I feel like, you've had this last 10-ish years of really diving into all of the film stuff. Like, what sparked your joy to get into film? Like, what were some of the catalysts for you of just, whatever you were doing before to where you are now?
Well, that's a interesting story because I mean I've always been wanted to be a filmmaker since I was 16.
Mm,
But well, I'm originally from Colombia, so I was born there, and I just I don't know. When I was really little, I was always swearing that I was going to be a doctor, and I was going into the med school. I don't know. I was really good at science and biology classes in school and everything. So I always thought that maybe that would be my life career. But then I had like at 16, I just came to a film club. And one of the first movies that I remember that it really hit me incredible was Dreams by Akira Kurosawa, and
mm,
that was something that really punched me. It was like really revealing about the sensibility, no, the idea of identity, the idea
mm,
of understanding a culture, your own culture. No, that's a very Japanese movie, but at the same time, it was really universal in the means of the emotionally, no, all the emotions and all the um, significance around a lot of the images that I was looking around with the
mm,
movie. So I don't know, that kind of sparked up something, a fire in me.
mm,
And then I started in Colombia to study in film school. But well, life is life, and it came out the opportunity to go to Mexico and live with my family. My dad had a really incredible job opportunity that he just couldn't pass, so he like sat with all of us down and asked us if we were going to join him in that adventure of going to Mexico and start a new life over there. And obviously we all said yes. It was kind of a no-brainer for most of the family. So we came to Mexico in 2005, and one of the things that I just discovered about myself is that film for me it's more of a craft, it's not that much of a
mm,
profession. You do a lot of filmmaking, it's just by going with the camera outside. Now we already obviously we have a lot of technology and we have a lot of things that obviously film schools are going to give you like all that knowledge, and it's going to be really, it's going to enhance a lot of the talent that you could already have or the interest of that spark. No,
mm,
but I don't know. I think that every single person has different ways to achieve their goals. For me, it wasn't film school.
mm,
So one of the things that I always understood while being on film school was that you really need to understand what are you talking about. I mean, what are going to be the story, that storytelling that you're going to put in front of the camera? What do
mhm,
you want to say? So for me, what's very logical that instead of going to film school, I was going to do ethnohistory, anthropology, and I was going to go that way. No, to have that part like the college and school life for me was having that kind of discipline and that kind of career. And after that, it's when I really worked really hard and trying to have a lot of networking and trying to meet a lot of people to precisely get into now the film industry. And that's my life before
Mm,
going into the film. No, but it was incredibly rich for my life. It was it was a lot of a introspective journey for my own,
mm,
because it was really interesting that for me, being an immigrant, from Colombia, now going to Mexico, and understanding what my identity was, what my nationality, what's that, who
right.
am I, where I'm
Mhm.
going, who's my community, and understanding that you are way more bigger than yourself. You are bigger in the means of the kind of people that are around you,
Yeah.
So I feel myself, oh, obviously I'm Colombian, but I feel I'm Colombian as I'm Mexican. I
Mm,
do share both cultures. Both are, well, now I've been living in Mexico almost 20 years, which it's almost the same time that I lived in Colombia. So
wow.
now my entire life right now, it's 2020 between the two countries, and both of them are part of my culture, are part of my identity, and they are my own.
Mm,
So for me, what's really interesting and really revealing to understand my personality, to understand who I am and who I project myself into the future, and
yeah.
how do I build my own way of seeing life, and who's going to make part of it. So
Yeah.
it's that's been really interesting. Uh-huh.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, let's dive into that because I feel like there so often, many of us share this emotion. And what I do love about film and filmmaking is that it has the ability to evoke emotions, right? And it can confront us sometimes. And ideally, that is part of growth, right? You've got, especially when I think about like younger kids or even younger adults, if they're not reading books and consuming knowledge or going to school and fully engaging in new learning, then where do we get some of that information? And I think sometimes we do get it through movies. And that's movies are a great way for us to actually ask some great questions of life where we might not otherwise find them. And I think one of those things around culture that you're talking about is the conflict, right? There's a conflict in sometimes how we feel about our culture, whether we feel like we're worthy enough or not worthy enough, depending on where we come from. One of the things that I discovered, I took a trip to Alaska earlier this year, and it was crazy to me to discover that they have these centers for many of the teenagers because unfortunately in Alaska their suicide rate is actually really really high among their teens because they don't feel like they fit in anywhere. They're like, I don't see in the media people like me. I don't see Eskimos. I don't see people who look like me, who are the same culture as me. And they have such a beautiful, rich culture of like how they use, animal skins, and that's like part of survival in the backlands and things like that. And even the way they build houses, like it's so sustainably done, but it's definitely not your modern house. It's not some modern home where someone's walking in the boards and the nails and putting it all together. It looks really different, and it's such a different life. And I think like being in this small community where you feel like, wow, is my culture just not celebrated like some of these other bigger cultures? And so they feel like literally a fish out of water in the world. And that leads to same anxiety and of course just the feelings that you sit with that. And I think it takes another growth edge to be able to sit with the fact that, like, hey, like there is rich culture and rich history wherever I come from, but I can also acknowledge and even take on other cultures that also feel really good for me. For myself,
Mhm.
I'm Asian American. Like I have a Thai side of my family and I have a very white American. I think my grandfather was born in West Virginia. Yeah, like who knows? Maybe he married a cousin. I don't. Maybe my grandma was his cousin, and they don't want to admit it. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's so interesting because I'm like, wow, these are such two different, wholly different cultures. We eat differently, we speak to each other differently, we interact differently, but there are pieces of each one that I love so much. And how do I take all of those things and allow them to be part of my community, who I am, what I share, my being. And I think that sometimes that can get underestimated. And movies are a great way to also share cultures. I remember watching um now I can't remember the name of the movie. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's actually I want to say it's a Disney, but I could be wrong about that. It could be a Pixar, but it's got all these colors um and the culture was just different. It's not your quote American culture of a film, and to be able to have some background and to be able to be like, oh wow, like to celebrate Mexican holidays and to see like what the culture is like and to be like, oh, wow, this is so different. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Everyone's got their own culture around language and music and how they entertain each other and how they get married, how they meet. And I think it's so rich for all of us to be able to share those things. And those are things obviously you get to do within filmmaking. And I love what you said about like keeping the wonder alive and
Mhm.
like allowing kind of the surprises and the delights to show up, because I think it's such a beautiful part of just I think surprises and delights from the universe is a universal language, right? We can all look forward to surprises and delights, and just being able to put our head up a little bit and go, wow, like I am different, and yet there are some things that are also the same. So I'd love to know from you, Estefania, like when you're thinking about films, and especially ones that you want to create and put into the world, not necessarily the projects that you're working on, but maybe the ones that you personally are inspired by. Like, is it a process for you? Like, do you write notes down? Do you have like a little tape recorder? Do you have like I'm so curious about your process, and like how do you process all of these wonders and thoughts and the information that comes in to be able to organize it in a way that you go, ah, now I have characters and I have a script and I have a film.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different jobs inside a film making or doing a movie. So
Yep.
for example, in my case, I've been drawn and my career has been done through the production process. It's not that much from from the directing or the screenwriting or something like that,
Hmm.
but it's a very creative process because you need to understand how to match your vision with money, with marketing, with being sensible to or sensible and being also like really in tune with what is happening around you at that moment.
Hmm.
So for example, my process to understand or to pick a story that I would love to tell and I would love to collaborate with a director or with a screenwriter or something like that has to be, most of all, it's something that in my case it has to be a lot with my vision of my values. If we
Mm.
have like the same values, maybe economical, maybe political, social, or the emotion values that that story it's given me, that's a story that I want to be engaged with, and that's a story that I want to be part of. No,
Mm.
so that will be like the first thing. And the second thing is that I come from a very analytical way of how to understand life and how to understand information, how to process information. I'm not that chaotic, creative, and that like fireworks. How there's a lot of artists who are very talented doing that.
Yeah.
That's something that's not the given on me. The part that it really works for me, it's the very analytical and very studied and the very structural how to approach things.
Mm.
So obviously anthropology, no, obviously ethnohistory, obviously having all this training during when I did that major, it was like, I mean, the training is to learn to observe, and it's learn to, yeah, to observe, to watch, to
Mm.
understand why people talk the way they talk, why
Mm.
do they, I don't know, this make the decisions that they do, understanding where are they coming from. It's even a little bit of psychological kind of work sometimes, but in the collective. It's not that
Mm,
individual, it's more like from the collective. So if I have like the same values and in my analytical process, I can absolutely identify myself with those values and with that way on how they are structuring the discourse. That's something that I'm absolutely going to be wanting to be involved with. That's my
mm,
process. That's the creative process that, at least for me, it's how it works in my brain and my body and my
mhm.
soul.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and you're so right. I always joke because I say when I'm hiring like copywriters, right?
Mhm.
So even if it was a script writer, like everyone's got their process. Sometimes they need to, take mushrooms and go out into the middle of the jungle, and then they come back and they're like, "Okay, 5 days later they have inspiration and they have these ideas and the creativity." But then there's others of us who are a little more grounded and also are process oriented, and we are a little more organized in our thinking. And I think that's what I hear you saying is you're like, I come from this sort of like organized thinking, methodology. And I totally get that. I was in the film industry actually over 20 years ago. And it was such an interesting thing because I didn't start in film. I mean, I'd done some drama before. I don't think that fully counts and qualifies me to be in the film business. But what happened was I ended up coming into it because of my business sense. And they were like,
Mhm.
"Hey, like you have really good business sense. Will you look at our contracts? Will you help us with investors? Will you, speak to them at a high level because we believe you're the person for that?" And that was really fascinating to me to see that like there's this lens of all these creatives who were going in and they're making films and they are fiery and they are interesting and different, and here I am like really grounded and I'm just like the P's and Q's of business and just making sure things are buttoned up. And it was a really funny balance to just see like how you need each other, right? You need all those pieces to actually make it function well,
Because
because
you
otherwise,
need
yeah,
the
otherwise it's
balance.
imbalance. That's right, otherwise
Mhm.
it's
You
totally
need balance.
imbalanced and it's chaotic and everybody's fiery and then everybody's just mad at each other or crying or screaming. Or everyone is just too buttoned up and everything's too serious and then you have no creativity.
You don't have any creativity and you don't have
Right.
like that spark, or you are not you're not allowing the magic to happen. So you
Yes.
need both. You need both
Yes.
things to and that's not only in film. I really believe that you need that in any kind of business. You really need that balance of having somebody who has the creativity and sometimes have maybe like the messiness and have like the chaotic part of it,
Mhm.
because you need to allow a room for the wonder, that
Yes.
wonder that we were talking about. And then you can have like all that fire and you can have all that magic and you can have all that wonder, and then trying to see, okay, so how can I structure that so I can translate this thing from the idea to something that I'm going to have in my hands, or just a product or a project or something that now I can share with everybody, that can see in a screen or they can hear through your ears or something like that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always a kind of a balance. Everything, when you find that balance, and you can, that's the reason why you need teams. No, that's the reason why you
Mhm.
need people allowing you to be yourself, to express yourself, to support you just by being yourself. And at the same time, it's people who is going to also make you accountable and make you responsible of all the things that you are trying to create, you're trying to pursue,
Yeah.
to create the world that we live in,
Yeah.
and that's for life, that's for business, I think that's for every single endeavor that we make as human beings, being and transiting on this earth during
Yeah.
our lifetime. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know, this has me thinking about how there was the writer's strike that went on for some time, and obviously that impacted the film industry. Did you feel an impact during that time, or were
Oh,
you
it
still
was
in?
brutal. It was
Mhm.
brutal because I mean, obviously we now live in a world that it's globalized, that it's very everything. I mean, there's a lot of productions in the United States that are from the United States that comes to Mexico, goes to Colombia, goes to another parts of the world to get filmed because of the costs, because of the story they're trying to achieve, because a
Yes.
lot of things. So and I mean, we are already a world that it's interconnected in ways that we couldn't even kind of grasp, because it's not only technological, it's economical, it's political. I mean,
Yeah.
all those things that you as the United States are going on politically speaking right now, it's something that for us it's also very important to understand. Now how are we going as a world to navigate through that, because we're all in that situation, and also what happens with Mexico, it's something that for the US in a very large part, it's really important to understand what is going on here in this country, because
Yeah.
economically, politically, socially, we are intertwined. we
Yeah.
we depend of each other,
We
even
do.
for the food, even for the workforce, for a lot of the things that are happening. So with a writer strike for our industry, it was brutal. I mean, those strikes, and then the strikes of the SAG, that was also real. I mean, that made all the headquarters in the United States to reevaluate and to restructure themselves. And I mean, we have Netflix Mexico, we have Amazon Prime Mexico, and we depend on what happens in the industry in the United States to understand if we are going to be able to have a living over here,
Mhm.
because of you coming here and filming your projects here, or maybe because it's a business expanding, so we're going to need, I mean, you want to invest in your company, so you invest in your overseas franchise, or you want to invest in another countries that you have maybe a lot of interest, business interests, no, inside
Yep.
those countries, no.
Yeah.
And then there's no writers, there's no actors, there's no a lot of the things that are primal to make our living, so they have to
Mhm.
restructure. You need, I mean, we had like 65% of cutbacks of
Wow,
shows
that's
that
a
were
lot.
going to be, that's a lot that we're
It's a
going to
lot.
make here in Mexico.
Yep.
So a lot of people went out of work, and we're still having the consequences, we're still having
Mhm.
sequels from all that
I
today,
was gonna that was
so
literally gonna be my next question, which is, do you feel like you're coming out of that? Do you feel like there's recovery?
we are
Or
we are beginning to
okay.
coming out of that, but we're still suffering the sequels, and we're still suffering a lot of the consequences of those decisions that obviously are for the good. We can
Mm.
absolutely understand that everybody wants fair wages,
Mhm. Mhm.
so yeah, we can absolutely understand that, but yeah, the
Right.
consequence was that there was a lot of people out of business for a long time. There are still people who are out of business till this day, that they couldn't have
Mm.
grasped a job
Right.
after all those things happened. But well, um 2025, it looks like it's already like, again,
The energy's
coming in
there. It's trying.
exactly, it's like, again, coming into a new kind of a new thing, it's coming on, because one of the things that not only the strikes, the pandemic also made our ways on how to make movies and how to produce movies, and it really had a very big impact. So talking about the film industry today, it's not the same talking about the industry 5 years ago,
Right.
in the means
Right.
of wages, in the means of some perks, in the means of how long your movies can be done.
Mm.
Sometimes you need to reduce the time to making them, sometimes you need to reduce your budgets, sometimes you need to make it with half of the people that you normally would do a movie.
Right.
I mean, it has changed, like, and we are still figuring out how to make it work, and how it's now these new rules of the game, how they are put at now. And
Yeah.
we're trying to navigate now to understand how to approach and how to, yeah, how to deal with that.
Absolutely.
So,
The
yeah,
pivot,
so I
right?
mean,
You have to pivot. You have to
exactly.
work with
You have to
different,
do it.
you have a different set of rules that you have to play by now, that you know, you had more tools before, and now people are like, "Sorry, we're gonna have to take a few of those away, and you still have to figure out how to
Yeah.
build this building without a hammer." And you're like, "Oh, wait, what?" And I 100% get that. My one of my best girlfriends, her daughter is an actress, and it's so fascinating to see just the difference of how she was so actively auditioning, and then it was just like silence, and it was the weirdest feeling of just this standstill. And there's definitely an impact to that, and I'm reminded that sometimes that's how life is, right? Like,
Mhm.
we don't
Yeah.
always get to always use every tool in the toolbox. And so what happens when life shows up? And I'm curious to know, like, during that time, what were some of the ways that you were able to deal with the stress of knowing that, like, this feels so unknown, and is this going to keep going? Like, how did you manage your emotions during that time?
Your community,
Mm,
your network, your support system. That's that became the most important thing that you needed in those moments. I mean, and that's the reason why, going back to your first question during this talk, what would I say to myself when I was starting my film career? Patience. It takes a
mm,
lot of patience to understand, to keep calm, to navigate, to understand how to deal with all these new configurations in life, with your work, with your, I mean, because obviously it's the way how you eat and it's the way how you pay your bills. It's not that easy.
right.
No, it's not that easy to see that at some point it was just taken away, or it's going to be the uncertainty. No, it's really trying to learn to live with the uncertainty, and the uncertainty, it's the only certain and secure thing in life. So
Yes.
okay, and it's accept that it's something that you
Yes.
just have to, okay, we're going to give in, we're going to accept that is how it's going to be play out. And for example, in my case, it was really interesting to see that there were no films during pandemic. There were some times that things were in the film industry came very wary, and now I had the podcasts. So
Mm,
I began to understand, okay, and I was invited to making a podcast. It wasn't something that I was drawn to or I knew a lot about it, because during those times here in Mexico, there wasn't that much of a podcast culture. It wasn't something that we were like really into as a society. Right now we are,
mhm,
but 3 4 years ago it wasn't like the big thing. So, and it was offered to us to make this podcast called the Red Note, that it's based on a movie that we're trying also to produce right now,
mm,
a fictional movie. And it was an incredible experience. It was really wonderful experience to understand how it was this world of podcast, how does it moves, how does it, and you diversify your own knowledge and you diversify your own toolkit, which is
yeah,
really interesting also. No, and you allow yourself to also understand that maybe you don't need just to be following just one path, that you have the opportunity to have multiple paths, and you can go
yes,
through other ways of how to make a living, or how to even go into a journey of your own discovery, the discovery of your own your own hobbies. What do you like, what do you want, what do you, I mean, it really puts you in the spotlight to
mm,
understand what makes you still moving forward, these
that's
points of
right.
crisis. And podcast, for example, for me was one of those outlets that it was really interesting to explore, and it came out incredible. No, because we got nominated with that podcast, and then I was offered another podcast here in Mexico with um, two very renowned podcasters. They have a program that it's called Se Regalan Dudas from Dudas Media. They are really, really big in the Hispanic and in Latin America and in the Hispanic community in the United States. These girls, and I made a second podcast with her, also talking about the same subject that I talked about in my first podcast, the Red Note. And it was another incredible experience, no, to
Mm,
working now with actresses, which are film actresses, but now uh, yeah, with microphones and in a
right.
podcast,
Setting.
doing a
Yeah.
storytelling, yeah, exactly, setting and
Hmm.
doing this storytelling of non-fictional stories, no,
Right.
based in the real stories of these very incredible women. And well, I mean, that's been my experience. No, you always find the silver lining when you are like in those very, very hard times where there was uncertainty is the one that is the only
Yeah.
thing that it's certain. It puts you in a position where you can find an opportunity to understand what else could I do.
Yeah.
No, what's
Absolutely. Yeah.
available.
What else? How else do I need to reinvent myself, right? While I'm
Exactly.
working through the uncertainty. Yes, I feel that's so big for sure. And because again, that is life. And I think it's really a testament, Estefania, to your resilience also and your just level of problem solving, right? You want to go into the world and you're like, well, I can't change what's happening right now. So how do I shift from my end? Right? If we're no longer, if we were originally playing checkers and now the game is not checkers anymore, well, what is the game shifting to? Because then I'm going to change my strategy and we keep moving forward because it's what we do, right? Like,
Exactly.
or you can
Adapting.
stick your, yeah, the only other option is to stick your head in the sand and that's just not going to work, right? That's not going to get any of us anywhere. So, I think with those times of, the great pause that we had during COVID, and then another pause that we had in the industry when it came to the strikes. I think those are the opportunity to innovate and
Mhm.
for the cream to rise to the top, and also for talent to really show up and be talented. One of my biggest complaints about, I grew up in LA and I lived down there forever. And I was in my mind, I thought to myself, so many of these waitresses, waiters, they're all actors. Like they get these jobs waiting tables because they're more flexible and then they have time for auditions. And what I said is LA should be the most remarkable service city that ever existed because you have actors who could at least act like they're giving you amazing service and creating an experience for you when you come into this restaurant to eat. But so many of them are missing the mark because they're just passing time. And I thought,
Mhm.
wow, this is such an opportunity that's being missed because you never know who you're serving at a table. You never know like who's going to show up and recognize you for whatever it's going to be. And how about just the pride of doing good work, and let's just even pretend that we can give good service, in a restaurant setting. So I think that but in, in that's why I said when we have to reinvent ourselves and we have to show up, like how are we showing up and what's showing up for us, and how do we just keep moving forward when life strikes us with these random monkey wrenches and we have to make some pivots and turns. And so congratulations, because I know that it's been a doozy, and I really do feel as you do. I feel like we're coming out of it, and I think it's going to be really interesting, as you said, even politically speaking, like what's going to open up. One thing I will say, because I've done events for also many, many years and brought many events to Mexico. I've gone to Colombia, to Medellin, and some really, really beautiful places, beautiful country, by the way.
Thank
And
you.
what I love is those countries offer me great incentives to bring groups of
Mhm.
people there and to go enjoy all of the beauty and the richness of those cultures. And I think that that will continue, and that as long as it does, you're always going to get that cross border, where people are going to constantly be doing business with each other across the borders. It's
Mhm.
inevitable. We're neighbors. There, we share
Mhm.
land mass. Like, it's going to happen. So I think from that perspective, like, it will feel really good. And if anyone's listening and you've not brought your groups over to places like Mexico and Colombia, they are marvelous, marvelous locations. And I've been going for over 20 years, and I can tell you, I've always felt safe. I've always felt good, and it's been remarkable savings, and the service has been top notch. So there's so much space for us to do business. And then now we're talking about obviously movies in Mexico and just so many other adventures. You have so much less red tape in Mexico when it comes to things like filming and permits and things like that. I personally feel like that's my personal
Mhm.
opinion on that. Whereas places even like Los Angeles make it so hard and it's so expensive to film certain things, and it's like you could probably go build it in Mexico, make it look like LA, and it would still be cheaper than trying to actually get the permit and do what you need to do in LA. So that's my 2 cents on that. Estefania, I'm so curious. Like, talk to me about, the next, like, what's the next phase look like for you? Like, if you say, okay, I know that things are not always perfect, and the only thing I can count on is some uncertainty. What things do feel like a level of certainty for you as you move forward?
Um, I mean, that's a really interesting question because honestly, right now I've been navigating my life in a way where I'm not going to be planning too ahead of myself.
Mm,
And I've been an advocating now to just let it be and flow with whatever life wants to bring to my life. And I'm
mm,
saying that because I'm very controlling. I'm somebody who really
mm,
likes to have everything very settled and understanding what is going to happen the next 10 steps ahead of
mm.
me. And the truth is that life laughs at me, and always it's like, no, that's not how it's going to work. So, yeah, it's always like
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
So, right now, honestly, I'm just going to let life to surprise me and just like let it be. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I'm working myself a lot with a lot of other projects, doing commercials, doing these projects these movie projects. I'm working with a really incredible group of people trying to bring the story of the Red Note alive, in the form of this fictional movie that we've been working on it for the past 8 years, and I mean, it's been a long time trying to get the finance for that movie and everything, but
Mm.
it always happens for a reason. For me, it has
Yeah.
been so incredible to understand that right now I'm so way much better prepared that I was 8 years ago when
Mm.
I was first trying to find the financing for the movie and all that kind of thing. No, I
Yeah.
really think that right now I would take way more informed and more sensible decisions that are important for the movie and for the well-being of my crew and the well-being of the project
Yeah.
than I would do that like 5 years ago. So I'm working on that. I'm also got associated with some wardrobe designers here in Mexico, and now we are trying to make sustainable clothing here
Ooh.
for
Ooh.
movies and for sale for customers in general. I'm really excited for that project also here in Mexico. So I'm trying like to never lose the wonder, trying to tip my toe in a lot of other things, no, that
Yeah.
maybe it's going to enrich my life. It's the idea of having a rich life, having a life where I'm just looking behind behind me and say, okay, this was incredible, an incredible life to live.
Yes.
And I've been learning a lot of things during, I mean, going through all that journey. So that's my plan for now.
Beautiful.
That's
That's
my plan for
beautiful.
now. Yeah.
It sounds very mindful, actually. I'll tell you, there's something beautiful about being in the flow and just being in a state of like flow and ease and saying, you know what? I don't necessarily need a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan because the way things have been going the last few years, those plans go out the window really fast. And also, it's a way to live so presently. And I
Mhm.
find that for myself as well, like, yes, of course I make the best laid plans. I'm a planner. I like to lay things out and have them organized in front of me. And also, it's so much of it. My mantra is enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey. Let's not get too caught up in the destination. Let's enjoy the journey because there's so much to be present for that's really beautiful. And if I'm going too fast, I'm going to miss it.
Mhm.
I'm going to miss it all, right? It's like taking a hike and never stopping to actually take in the nature, to take in the view and to look around and just go, "Oh my gosh, like this is life. Like this is what I get to experience right now." And I know I don't want to miss any of those moments. So I'm with you on letting things be easeful and flowful and just putting yourself into projects that feel good and let you drum up a little curiosity and wonder and build those relationships and just feel good all around without it having to have some absolute outcome or be some absolute thing at the end of the rainbow. So I love that. Amazing. Well, Estefania, thank you so much for being our guest here today. You and I are going to spend a little more time over on my YouTube channel, which is the Mad Love Your Life show, and we will do a little live version over there for those of you that want to get to know Estefania better. Her and I are going to dive into some other topics, but for today, if you want to get in touch with our guest, just check out the show notes or pop down into the comments section and you're going to see all the ways to get the goods. If you want to catch the extended version, you can head over to YouTube. It is the Mad Love Your Life show over there. Give me a subscribe and some love. And anything else you need, of course, you can find it at maryd.com. Until next time, may abundance always walk beside you. May joy always go before you. And may love always guide you on your path. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. We air live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bold Brave TV. We hope to see you back next week. For more ways to connect with my guests, content, programs, and retreats, just head over to www.maryd.com and subscribe. That's MARYDEE.com.